What's up, strangers? It's been a while since we did an episode of this podcast. So, truth be told, I thought I had episodes scheduled for 2 weeks before Thanksgiving and then the week of Thanksgiving. When I just came into my podcast service now to look at them, it turns out that they weren't actually scheduled for then. They were scheduled for, I don't know how this happened, 2023. I don't know how it happened. My apologies for the little blurb. I kind of nixed the Thanksgiving one because it truly was 100% Thanksgiving themed, and it seemed kind of odd to post it after Thanksgiving. So we'd end up nixing that one. I just went ahead and published the one that was scheduled for the week before Thanksgiving. So that was the episode on what happens if your tenant can't pay. What are some ways that you can handle it? If you haven't listened to that one, pop on over, listen to that one. It's got some really good information about how to handle tenants that come to you and say, I'm having trouble with rent. And I said this in the episode, but the ones that are being honest with us are the ones we definitely want to work with. But anyway, enough about that. What are we going to talk about today? Well, today, this potentially might end up being my last episode of the season. I actually hope not. I actually want to do another one later on this month, which is going to be sort of a preview of where I believe the market is going in 2023, not just in regards to purchases, but then also in regards to, well, I should say purchases and selling, depending on what side of the fence you are as a real estate investor. But also, I want to talk about the rental market, where that is going. Are we seeing rents start to stabilize? Are they decreasing in some places? Are they still continuing to go up? What are we going to see as far as turnover of units? Is it going to be easy to rent out any vacancies next year, or should we be looking towards trying to keep as many tenants long term as we can? Because is it possible that next year will be the slowest real estate market in 10 years? One that it's very slow to buy, very slow to move. And does that bleed over to rentals? This is what I want to talk about yet. But first, I wanted to have a little bit of a chatty update, but then also an end of year recap. So let's get started on that. So if you know me well enough, you know that I don't necessarily believe in New Year's resolutions, and I don't really set a lot of priority or even reverence for the beginning of the year, the end of the year. Like, obviously in my industry, there's certain things that get done in this time frame. But I'm not someone who basically sits down and says in December, okay, what am I going to do next year? Because for me, my next year has already started. I started this a long time ago that my new year actually starts the day after my birthday. So I already had my new year, per se, back in October. So what I'm going to do with this podcast is bring you up to date on what I decided were my new year goals, which I'm already kind of leaning into. And I'm going to recap for you what exactly has gone on this year and what lessons I've learned, because there have been quite a few lessons that I've learned this year, and not all of them are very great lessons. So I want to dive into first, what are some of the biggest lessons that I've learned this year? And I think the first one that comes to mind is that sometimes your personal life must come first. And that doesn't mean just for an hour or a day. There are times that your personal life has to come forward or come first for multiple weeks, multiple months, because there will be times when you're presented with a situation that is a sort of once in a lifetime occurrence. It's something that if you don't lean into fully and embrace and try and be a part of, that you might end up regretting a year later, 2 years later, 3 years later, or maybe even just on your deathbed. So as many of you know, this podcast kind of disappeared off the radar between May and honestly September, beginning of October. I had some very big personal stuff going on with my mom, and it's still hard to talk about. I'm getting better with it. Trying to, because we've kind of entered this new norm of sorts. So what's going on with my mother is pretty much what's going to be going on for the foreseeable future. And we're just doing everything we can to try and help her. And for about 6 months, that meant I really did put my life on hold. And I can't even begin to quantify like how much I put my life on hold during those 6 months. And when I say my life, I want to be clear that there are still some things I was doing. I was still engaging with my family in other capacities. I was still going to all of my nieces' soccer games, basketball games, because I'm a completely over-involved aunt because I don't have children. So while I leaned into that role as being a caretaker and advocate for my mom, I didn't necessarily check out of my life completely, but there were aspects that definitely suffered. 100%. Any ideas about expansion for rentals that I own, I can't even say it was on the back burner because it wasn't even on the stove at that point. Like, it had been taken off the burner, taken off the stove, and it was like put back in the refrigerator. Anything in regards to where I'm going to take my real estate career personally, again, off the stove and into the refrigerator. It just wasn't one of those priority fires to keep cooking. And I'm using the stove analogy because I heard months ago that, actually years ago, I think, actually at this point, if I'm being honest, I just reread the concept a couple months ago. We all have basically 4 things that we can truly say are priorities or our focuses at any given time. And there happens to be 4 burners on a stove. So you can't necessarily have 5 things that you're extremely committed to and extremely involved in. You can only really have 4. So those 4, for me at that moment, didn't really include those items. For me, what it included was obviously helping my mother and my dad. Another thing that was a priority was just keeping the income I had coming in going. So maintaining the investments I already owned with my brother, maintaining my property management company. A little bit of expansion involved with that one, but not a whole heck of a lot. And also just getting my feet wet as a realtor, because as many of you know, I recently became a realtor in the past 18 months instead of sitting on the sidelines for years as a property manager. So that's where basically my focus was. That's where my 4 burners were working on, were those 4 items. Everything else really kind of had to go in the refrigerator and wait for later. Now, is currently the moment we're sitting in, is this later? Yes, it's getting there. There's this new norm. There's this new routine. There's this almost this idea of acceptance of this is where my life is at right now. This is where my mom is at. And right now, it's sort of in a situation where I can maybe begin to transfer things and change up the burners and try and get a new fire going, I guess, to use another stove analogy, although that's a bad stove analogy because nobody wants a stove fire. But you get what I'm trying to say. So my biggest lesson from this year is that there are times that you have to let your personal life take priority, because if you don't, you will regret it. At some point down the road, you will regret it. The other big lesson from this year is that openness doesn't make you vulnerable. It can often open up doors and opportunities. So this sort of coincides a little bit with what was going on with my mom, but also it extends beyond that into this idea that if you are an introvert, which I am, we really don't like talking about ourselves. Like, for me, it doesn't matter if it's my husband, it doesn't matter if it's my dad, it doesn't matter if it's a colleague. Like, I just don't like talking about myself and what's going on in my life. This has been a constant pattern for me for decades. I think, my dad used to joke that the last time I started a sentence with I was when I was like 7. I don't know if this is exactly true, but it seems to indicate that I really do have a hard time opening up about what's going on in my life. And the problem with that is that as an introvert and an extremely private person, because that goes beyond being an introvert, is that there are times that I miss out on being able to work with somebody or join somebody on their journey because they don't know what I'm thinking in my head. They don't know where I'm going. They don't know what I'm interested in. And we might have ways that we can work together and truly excel both of ourselves forward. But yet, since I'm not opening up, that opportunity never presents itself. And I say this as a lesson because when I look back on the last actually, wow, this is last like 8 months or so that everything's been going on with my mom. If I had been more open with certain people in my life earlier, not only in regards to what was going on with my mom, but more in regards to what I was still wanting to do in real estate, I probably could have still been accomplishing some things. Not a lot, because obviously my focus was still going to be on my mom. But if I had been more open, I could have collaborated with people where then all of the burden would not have been placed on me. And I could have maybe made some pretty decent progress this year despite what was going on in my personal life and really kind of monopolizing it time-wise, emotionally, mentally, physically, everything. I could have had these opportunities. I still could have been moving forward at a quicker pace than what I actually moved forward for those 8 months of 2022. So I encourage you all, even if you're an introvert, even if you're an extremely private person, tell people what you're doing. Tell people what you want to do. Don't be afraid to share what you're thinking about doing. Another big lesson from this year is to always be networking. Now, for me, I've always talked about how networking is super important in the beginning when you're getting into real estate, and how really the first things you should be doing before you even start looking at properties is building your circle and networking. At this point, you guys probably think I'm a broken record on that, and you're like, would you just shut up? We've heard that. Well, I'm going to say it, but I'm going to say it in a different context. One thing I've learned from this past year is that we need to be continually networking, whether it be other real estate colleagues that might be able to collaborate with us, or it's contractors, or it's learning about different avenues of real estate investing through connecting with people, or maybe it's another realtor if you're someone who likes to work with a realtor, having a backup realtor. Maybe it's having different attorneys at your disposal so that if your main one kind of retires or just decides to stop responding very quickly, you have someone else you can go to and get your answer from. So I really encourage you all to always be networking. Let's take that famous line, always be closing, and make it ABN, always be networking. Maybe we should create an entire list of commandments for real estate based on Glengarry Glen Ross, and starts with always be. We'd have always be networking, always be closing, go on and on and on. But anyway, I encourage you to continually network, have depth in your network. Ideally, for your what I call white collar trades, you ideally want to have 2 people in your life that serve the same purpose. So 2 realtors, 2 accountants, 2 attorneys, 2 title company connections maybe. But then as far as the trades go, the blue collar connections that we all have, I encourage you to have a depth between 3 to 4 of every specialty. So like a general contractor, 3 to 4 of those guys that you can call for pretty much anything. Then 3 to 4 people that solely focus on painting. Then 3 to 4 people that solely focus on exteriors. Get yourself a well-rounded roster so that in the event you get super busy, like maybe you just have a lot of projects going on that need to be addressed, you don't run out of people that you are comfortable with and that you know you can work with. The last thing on earth you want to do is find yourself in this bind where you don't have enough depth, so you're suddenly hiring somebody in what's sort of a sticky, fixy situation. Like you're stuck and you need them to start working quickly. So I highly encourage you to always be curating your network. Make sure you have depth in it. My fourth recap lesson from this year is going to be the necessity of a schedule. Now, I'm not someone who schedules every single hour of my day, every single minute. I'm not even a person who necessarily schedules out my day in regards to, okay, from 8:30 to 9:30, I'm doing this. From 10 to noon, I'm doing this. I've always advocated more of a block schedule idea. And for me, particularly with how completely unpredictable April through September was, I really sort of chose to follow more of my block schedule rather than my time schedule. But I had some sort of schedule that was dictating what I did each day. So I always knew, okay, let's see here, it's Monday. So we're going to be working on, these are just some of my categories, finder tasks, doer tasks. I'm going to be working on the administration of my company. And then lastly, I'm going to be working on my 5 to Thrive, which are my 5 goals that I set for myself every single month. So I knew Monday, okay, that's my goal. That's what I need to get through. And I have various times devoted to each of these sections. While yes, I do have these programmed in my calendar for certain times of the day, I gotta admit, when all this was going on, I focused less on the specific time and more about getting back to those specific block schedule areas and actually putting time in there and putting very, very close to the time allotted into each section. So if I had 75 minutes for my 5 to Thrive, my monthly projects, then I get as close as I possibly can to 75 minutes that day. It's really important to have a schedule every day of the year, whether your life is in a normal phase or a chaotic phase, which some of you are like, I feel like my life's constantly in a chaotic phase. Okay, that may be true, but then there's going to be a time where your life might be qualified as super chaotic. And your schedule that you're building now under your normal chaos is going to be even more important when your life becomes super chaotic. So I strongly encourage you to develop a schedule. Again, you don't have to make it from 6:30 to 7 on Wednesdays. I'm doing this. You can just make it more of a block schedule. You have days and individual items or areas of your life that you want to address. Whatever is going to fit best for you in your life. If you're going through a season of life where you have a lot of unpredictability, like I was just through, focus on doing the block schedule and focus on getting through those blocks. If you're someone who maybe struggles with procrastination, you might better benefit from doing an actual timed schedule within having the block schedule. So having certain times that you're doing these blocks. But no matter what phase you are in your life, no matter what your season is, develop a schedule for yourself and stick to that schedule as much as humanly possible. So that's what my lessons were from this year. But what did I really do with this year other than learn those things? Well, honestly, that's kind of hard to answer because I did have so much of my time taken up by my mom. One of my biggest accomplishments from this year, and it's one of my proudest moments, is I was able to give my father an award that he has been deserving for over 30 years. So I am chairman of the Wisconsin Apartment Association, which is a landlord representation group in the state of Wisconsin. We don't just represent landlords at the state capitol. We do education, we do networking, we have local chapters. I'm not here to promote it, but I'm here to tell a story about how my proudest moment this year was being able to give my father, who is a past president, past vice president, and the originator of the education platform for WAA. I was able to induct him into our Hall of Fame, which is a huge honor for me to be able to do that, especially because I know that everywhere I've gotten to at this point in my real estate career, whether it be with what I own, my management, or being chairman of the Wisconsin Apartment Association, all of it is because of the foundation that my dad set for me. And so to be up there on stage and to give him that award in October was probably the most humbling and proud moment I've had in my entire life. And I know I will never, ever forget that. And even if there's nothing else that I truly accomplish in my tenure as chairman, which I know is untrue, I've already accomplished a lot, but even if that ends up being what I think is my biggest accomplishment, then I will have done well, because I will have done well as a daughter and by honoring my mentor. So that was something I was really proud of this year, being able to do that, being able to give my dad that award. But what did I do in real estate? Like, really? If my life was on hold for 8 months, what really, truly did I do? Well, personally, I didn't really do too much. I'm still at the same number of units. If you remember at the beginning of the year, I had 1 or 2 podcasts about deals I was actively trying to get through. Those all fell apart before stuff with my mom kind of got important. So those all fell apart independently, but then after that, it was just like that dam opened up and I had all of this stuff to take care of with my mom. So I didn't necessarily try very hard to find other properties. I did hire a virtual assistant. So I did hire my first virtual assistant. I hired someone to help me with the property management side. And actually just this week, we're working on expanding the role and we're working on bringing it into different aspects of my life as well, so that it's not just strictly the property management. My goal is for that person to be able to take some of this load off of me so that I can truly begin to focus again and make my own goals, my own dreams a priority again, like I had started to do at the beginning of the year before everything got crazy with my mother. Because one of the things I told myself was when I went through the big transition back in August of 2021, which I'm not really going to recap here, but if you're really curious, there's a pretty vague episode that I think was recorded back in like November or December of 2021. It's a pretty vague episode, but it gives you an idea of everything that kind of happened. And one thing I told myself after all that happened and the dust settled was that I wanted to make my own career a priority, my own investing career. And I am proud to say that with the exception of obviously having to put my mother first for a while, I did make significant effort at that for the first four months of the year. That I really, truly was trying very hard to do that. So I am proud of myself with that. And I recognize that I chose to have what was going on with my mother come first. And I'm choosing now to get refocused on that. I'm choosing now to make 2023 the year where I truly do buy an additional 2 rental properties. I'm making 2023 the year where I do 3 flips. And I'm also making it the year that I do a lot of research and contemplate buying my first short-term rental. I also have a goal for 2023 to close 32 transactions as a real estate agent. I'm hoping that obviously at least 5 of these will be my own. Ideally, I'd like to have 10 of them be my own. But we'll see where that ends up. But then the other goal I have for myself is to get my broker's license here in Wisconsin. Very long story short, a very quick synopsis. Every real estate agent, unless they are a broker, they work under a broker in the state of Wisconsin. So me as a real estate agent, I work under a broker. A broker is someone who basically not only manages agents, but they're people who can open up and operate a trust account on their own. They're people that can write land contracts on their own. So for those 2 very distinct reasons, I am going to be getting my broker's license next year. Now, I'm not going to be leaving the realty firm that I'm a part of. I love the group I'm a part of. They have quickly become my real estate family. Like when I truly look back on this year, one of the blessings has been not only just the camaraderie that I've received working in this brokerage, but also the level of friendship that I've received. And it's friendships that motivate me. It's friendships that inspire me to keep moving forward. And I truly think that I did not lose complete hope in growing my own portfolio and doing my own things in real estate simply by being in this company's circle, simply by being in their radius and being with these people who are actively flipping, who are buying real estate properties to hold, people that are out there learning about different ways to invest, short-term rentals, tax liens. By being a part of this circle at the brokerage, I was able to keep myself mildly inspired that there will come another point where I can refocus and rebuild and build my own portfolio and get back to what I truly had wanted to do when I started out the year. My apologies if you heard something. My cat decided to interrupt our regularly scheduled program by completely yelping because she wanted to suddenly get out of the room. Normally, I don't record these podcasts with the cats in the room for that reason. And I'm like, oh, she's sleeping. It'll be totally fine. Well, apparently she chose to wake up 23 minutes in and decide that she really wanted to get out of the room. So my apologies for that yowling if you heard it in the background. I tried to stop it really quickly. I tried to, but alas, I think you probably heard something. So this is my goals for next year, for 2023. I truly want to make 2023 a year that I am incredibly proud of professionally. I definitely have imposter syndrome, so I have a hard time looking at any year and saying that I'm truly proud of it. But I've never gone into a year saying, okay, I want to make 2023 the year I'm extremely proud of. And that's what I'm doing. I'm going into this year saying I want to make it the year I am most proud of. So I'm going to give it my all. I'm going to follow my schedule. I'm going to take my lessons with me from this year. And I'm going to see how far I can actually go in 2023 and build the life that I truly, truly wanted when I started this journey 7 years ago. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode of the podcast. We're going to do another one. Like I said, I want to do a market update one in about like a week or so. That'll probably be our last one. And then we're going to switch over into 2023. I have a small change coming for 2023 for the podcast. It's not a huge one. We're not doing a whole new, it's brand new all over again. No, there's just a slight tweak, but it's one I want to be upfront about so that everyone understands the direction of the podcast and understand we're still going to be talking about real estate. We're still going to be talking about over-encompassing topics, but we might drill down a little bit niche here and there from time to time, just because I find that that's where my expertise is. All right, guys, I hope you have a great week. I hope to hear from you guys before Christmas, but in the event that we don't cross paths before Christmas or New Year's, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. And those of you that are listening that are not of the Christian faith, I wish you a happy Hanukkah and a happy Kwanzaa. Have a great week, guys. I'll talk to you later. Building a real estate portfolio is as much about buying properties as being a de facto entrepreneur. I'm Karina Ufinger. I'm a multi-property investor, rental management company CEO, and also a landlord coach. I'm going to show you the systems and knowledge you need to thrive as a real estate entrepreneur. From your first property purchase to building a portfolio of passive income where you work less than 5 hours a week, you'll learn the essential information and skills to build a profitable portfolio and live the life you truly want. Whether you are well on your journey or just starting out, you're in the right place. Welcome to the Landlord Chick Podcast.